I remember staring at my phone, hands shaking so badly I could barely keep it steady. A single message sat on the screen. Just sign what Melissa sends and don't make this harder. It was sent by my mother-in-law, not my wife, her mother. My stomach dropped as I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a plan, and I was already standing inside it, without knowing how it started. And the first crack in that plan happened in a place I never expected. I knew something was wrong the second I walked into the Domain Mall in Austin, Texas. People were laughing, music was playing, stores were glowing with weekend sales, but my stomach tightened like it already knew the truth. I wasn't supposed to be there. I was only stopping by to grab a part for one of my auto shops. But then I saw her, my mother-in-law, Teresa. Dressed head to toe in designer brands she could never afford, holding shopping bags she definitely didn't buy with her own money, and walking right beside a man she shouldn't even know. He was tall, fit, dressed like a catalog model. I had only seen his face once, in a photo hidden in my wife Melissa's phone. A photo she lied about, a photo she called just a trainer from the gym. But here he was, shopping with her mother. I froze in place. Teresa didn't. Her smile dropped the second she saw me. Her hand tightened on the strap of the Louis Vuitton bag dangling from her arm, the one charged to my account. "Daniel, this isn't what it looks like," she blurted out, which is always exactly what people say when it's precisely what it looks like. The man, Evan, didn't even look at me. He just kept browsing sunglasses like I was invisible. Like this was normal. Like they had done this before. Teresa stepped closer, lowering her voice like we were sharing a secret. "Please don't make a scene. Melissa will explain everything." That was when my heartbeat stopped. Melissa? My wife. The woman I'd been losing little by little over the past 6 months. Late nights, new friends I'd never met, trips she couldn't explain, phone always flipped face down. And now her mother, shopping with the man from the hidden photo. I didn't yell. I didn't confront her. I didn't give her the satisfaction of watching me fall apart. I simply said 1 second, stepped aside and pulled out my phone. The credit card company picked up immediately. "Yes, I need to cancel a card," I said calmly. "No, not lost. I want it permanently disabled. Freeze the account, effective immediately." Behind me, I heard the first beep, then another, then a third. Declined, declined, declined. Before I go any further with this story, tell me, what city are you watching from? I love seeing where these stories reach. Teresa's head snapped toward the cashier as the screens lit up red. Her face drained of color. She spun toward me, eyes blazing, voice cracking with rage. "Daniel, what have you done?" I just looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time I saw the truth. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was part of a plan to replace me, bankrupt me, and hand everything I built to my wife and her lover. What happened next, none of them were prepared for. If you've never felt your entire world tilt sideways in a single afternoon, let me tell you, it isn't loud. It isn't dramatic. It's quiet, too quiet. By the time I left the Domain Mall that day, Teresa's voice still echoed in my ears, half threat, half panic. But while she was scrambling to understand what was happening, I finally began to see the full picture I had been ignoring for months. My name is Daniel Ortiz, 38 years old, born and raised in San Marcos, Texas, now living and running 2 auto repair shops in Austin. I built my business from nothing. First shop at 25, second at 31. I worked 6 days a week, 12-hour shifts, hands stained in grease, building something stable for my future family. My wife, Melissa, used to say she admired that about me. She used to say she felt safe with me. But people change. Sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. When I met her 8 years ago in Houston, she was a bright, ambitious medical assistant with a loud laugh and warm eyes. Her mother, Teresa, lived with her back then, just temporarily. That temporary situation quickly bled into our marriage. Teresa had a way of inserting herself everywhere. Our decisions, our finances, our home. At first, I tolerated it. Melissa was close to her mom. I didn't want to be the man who forced a wedge between mother and daughter. But over time, Teresa's opinions stopped sounding like opinions and more like commands. "Daniel, you should really put the house in Melissa's name. Daniel, you work too much. Melissa deserves more freedom. Daniel, one day you'll thank me for helping you manage your money properly." Everything she said was wrapped in fake sweetness, the same syrupy voice she used on store clerks she thought were beneath her. But Melissa listened. She always listened. That was the first crack. Then, 6 months ago, Melissa changed. It started small. A new gym membership, sudden girls' nights in Dallas, trips to visit cousins in San Antonio, new clothes she said were on sale even though the receipts said otherwise. She became guarded with her phone, placing it face down at dinner, taking it into the bathroom, sleeping with it under her pillow. More arguments, more excuses, more distance. I told myself it was stress, work, or maybe we were just drifting. I never imagined it was something darker. But the signs were there. They always are. Like the time she came home late, hair perfect, makeup fresh, smelling like someone else's cologne. I asked her where she'd been. "Don't be paranoid, Daniel," she snapped. "I'm not your employee. I don't have to punch in and out." That one hurt, because I never treated her like that, and she knew it. Then there were the charges on the credit card, my card. Teresa's name added years ago, just for emergencies. Suddenly there were purchases from high-end boutiques, luxury spas, jewelry stores. I questioned Melissa about them. She shrugged and said her mom was just finally treating herself. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But seeing Teresa at that mall, with him, with Evan, her daughter's secret lover, laughing, holding bags paid for by me, confirmed everything. She wasn't treating herself. She was treating him, to my money, to my life, to my wife. And they all thought I was blind. As I drove home from the mall, I replayed every moment from the last year. Every cold look from Teresa, every time Melissa rejected a hug, every unexplained trip, every late-night message she hid from me. Piece by piece, the puzzle snapped together into one horrifying truth. This wasn't just infidelity. This was preparation, a coordinated plan. Melissa distancing herself emotionally, Teresa spending my money freely, secret trips with Evan, conversations behind closed doors, the sudden push for Melissa to have more financial independence. And most importantly, the heated conversation I overheard weeks ago when Melissa thought I was asleep. "Mom, once we finalize everything, I'll have control of the shops. He won't fight it. He trusts me too much." I didn't understand it then, but now I do. They weren't planning a future together, they were planning my replacement. So when Teresa saw her credit card get declined in front of Evan, when her face twisted in rage, that wasn't just about losing a shopping trip. It was fear. Fear because I had disrupted their timeline. Fear because I had acted unexpectedly. Fear because for the first time, I wasn't the fool they thought I was. What I didn't know yet was that the betrayal went even deeper, far deeper, than an affair and stolen money. And the moment I discovered the truth, it changed everything. The night after I canceled Teresa's credit card, I barely slept, not because of guilt, because of clarity. For the first time in months, my brain wasn't fogged by confusion or self-doubt. Things that once felt random, small moments I brushed aside, came back to me in sharp detail, like memories that had been waiting for the right moment to show their true meaning. And the timing couldn't have been more perfect. Because the very next morning, a truth I never expected to uncover walked right into my life like a punch to the chest. At 8:17 a.m., I received an alert from my business accountant. "Daniel, did you authorize the request Melissa sent?" "It's urgent," you respond. I frowned. Melissa rarely involved herself in the business. She liked that I handled everything. It was one of the few things we didn't argue about. The attachment stunned me. Melissa had submitted documents to transfer partial ownership of one of my shops to herself. Not a suggestion, not a question, a legal attempt. And she had forged my signature. That was the moment the betrayal stopped being emotional and became strategic. What I didn't realize yet was that this wasn't the plan, it was only the paperwork. The real damage was already in motion. I called her. No answer. I called again. Straight to voicemail. I drove to her workplace in downtown Austin, walked into the medical office, and asked to see her. The receptionist told me Melissa had taken 2 weeks off for personal matters. Personal matters, a cold, metallic taste filled my mouth. I called her again. This time she answered, whispering, "Daniel, I'm in the middle of something. Stop calling." "Why are you taking time off work? What's going on?" She hung up, and just like that, the cracks widened into fractures. That afternoon, the universe delivered the second blow. And this time it wasn't paperwork. It was proof. My friend Javier, one of my shop managers, texted me a photo taken in San Antonio. It was Melissa, laughing, walking out of an apartment building with Evan, the same man I saw with Teresa, her hand on his arm, his hand on her lower back, their bodies too close to be anything but what they were. The caption read, "Saw this while visiting my cousin. You okay, brother?" I wasn't okay, not even close. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred, not from tears, those would come later, but from the realization that I had been living in someone else's script. My hands were shaking so badly I had to sit down. My stomach turned, sharp and sour, like I was going to be sick. I remember thinking, this can't be real. This doesn't happen to me. A script written by two women who smiled in my face while planning to carve up my life like a Thanksgiving turkey. And yet, the worst part hadn't even hit me. By evening, after hours of pacing and replaying her lies in my mind, I started digging. Emails, bank statements, shared calendars, cloud backups. Within minutes, I found the folder. It was labeled events. But inside, nothing about birthdays or holidays, just screenshots of apartments, lawyer contacts, and a budget spreadsheet titled Post-Divorce Life Melissa. My name was in the notes. Not as a husband, as an ATM. My businesses listed as liquid assets. My house labeled primary marital asset to be awarded. There were columns calculating how much she could take, how fast she could sell, how much Evan needed to maintain his fitness brand in LA. LA, Los Angeles. The city Melissa had dreamed about. Just not with me. But the dagger was the line under projected timeline. Divorce filing target 4 to 6 weeks. Teresa assisting. Evan relocating early to prepare. Teresa assisting. The same Teresa who cried at our wedding toast. The same Teresa who told me I was the best thing to ever happen to her daughter. The same Teresa who used my credit card like it belonged to her. It all made sense. The overspending, the sudden coldness, the pressure to put property in Melissa's name, the late nights, the secrecy. They weren't random tensions in a marriage. They were preparations for an extraction of my life. And once I saw that, I knew confrontation would be a mistake. They needed to believe they were still winning. Around midnight, needing fresh air before I exploded, I stepped outside and sat on the porch. My phone vibrated. It was a message from an unknown number. When I opened it, my blood went cold. A selfie. Melissa and Evan, together, in a hotel room. Champagne bottle open in the background, her head on his shoulder, his hand around her waist. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she used with me. Not the forced smile she wore at family gatherings. No, this was a woman who had already moved on. Below the photo, one sentence. "We're leaving soon. Just sign what Melissa sends and don't make this harder." It wasn't from Melissa. It wasn't even from Evan. It was from Teresa, my mother-in-law. The woman who had eaten at my table, stayed in my home, called me son, and pretended to love me as long as I provided. Now she was orchestrating the whole thing, like I was some prop in her daughter's new life. That message didn't break me. It woke me up. Because in that moment, betrayal transformed into something sharper, something I hadn't felt in years. Resolve. They had a plan. They thought it was airtight. They thought I'd roll over, heartbroken, defeated, confused. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't even imagine, was that I had already started creating a plan of my own. A plan that would make their entire scheme collapse like a house of cards in a Texas storm. And the first step was learning exactly how far their betrayal went. I was nowhere near ready for the answer, but I was finally ready to find it. The morning after Teresa's threatening message, I woke up with an unfamiliar feeling, clarity. Not peace, not acceptance, but clarity as sharp as broken glass. If they wanted a war, they were about to learn I didn't lose quietly. I sat in my truck outside my shop, engine idling, watching customers come and go. For years, I had built this business with my hands. Early mornings, busted knuckles, long nights. It wasn't just income. It was my pride, my identity, my legacy. And Melissa had tried to hand it to another man like a party favor. My phone buzzed again. Another forged request for financial transfer. Another empty signature pretending to be mine. Enough. I drove straight to Dallas, to the office of the attorney who handled my business contracts. Richard Velasquez, a quiet man in his 60s with silver hair, sharp eyes, and zero tolerance for betrayal. He had known me since I opened my first shop. If there was anyone I trusted to understand what was happening, it was him. When I sat down across from him, he studied me for a moment. "You look like a man who finally opened the wrong door," he said calmly. I slid the folder across his desk. The screenshots, the apartment listings, the forged transfer request, photos of Melissa and Evan in San Antonio, the threatening message from Teresa. He skimmed through everything with the focus of a surgeon examining scans before an operation. When he finally leaned back, his expression had changed. Harder, colder. "Daniel, this isn't just infidelity. This is premeditated marital fraud." Hearing it out loud felt like being doused in ice water. "Is there anything they can still take from me?" I asked, though the answer terrified me. He shook his head. "Not if we move first." "Move how?" He opened a blank form on his computer. "You file for divorce immediately. You, not her. The spouse who files first sets the legal stage. And because you have documented proof of infidelity, she loses the ability to claim your premarital assets, your business equity, or any future earnings." I exhaled shakily. "So she walks away with what?" "Clothes in a suitcase," he replied. "Maybe a handbag if she asks nicely." It was the first time in weeks I felt something almost like hope. He wasn't done. "As for your mother-in-law, Teresa, her involvement, her coordination, and her financial misuse of your cards, that makes her legally exposed. She can be held liable for fraud and theft. You don't need to press charges, but you do need to document everything." He slid a notepad toward me. "Start with timestamps. Every expense, every lie, every message, every detail. Don't confront them yet. Let them think you're uninformed and emotionally broken. It keeps them confident." Confident people make mistakes, and mistakes leave fingerprints. That night, I transformed from a heartbroken husband into a quiet detective. I combed through credit card statements, cloud backups, online banking archives, old emails, receipts tucked in drawers, location history from Melissa's car, even the smart home logs that tracked door openings and closings. Every lie had a footprint, and I collected them like fossils. But the real turning point came from something I never expected. Melissa had a habit of charging her dead phone in my office at home. She often connected to my computer by accident when she plugged into the wrong port. I discovered an entire folder automatically synced to my desktop: videos, voice memos, screenshots. One recording shook me so deeply I had to pause and grip the edge of the table. Teresa's voice, sharp as a blade. "Melissa, don't feel guilty. Men like Daniel exist to be used. He's stable, predictable, hardworking, exactly the type you marry to gain something. But lovers like Evan, they're the ones you build a life with." Melissa's voice soft and unsure. "But what if Daniel finds out?" "He won't," Teresa snapped. "He worships you, and when we take what we need, he'll be too devastated to fight." The audio ended with laughter. Cold, confident laughter. I felt something inside me harden. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. It wasn't even betrayal. It was a heist, one planned by two women who believed I was too gentle, too trusting, too naive to see the truth. If you think they've gone too far, hit the like button so this story reaches more people. So I made a decision. If they were going to treat me like a fool, I would let them. A fool is invisible. A fool is underestimated. A fool is ignored. Perfect. Let them think they were winning. Let them think I was spiraling. Let them think I was broken. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, I was building a legal wall so high and so strong that when it finally dropped on them, they'd never recover. I froze all shared accounts. I transferred business funds into secured entities. I changed passwords, withdrew legal documents from the safe, and rerouted mail. I installed discreet surveillance in the home office. Nothing illegal, only motion-triggered audio recording on my workspace. Because Melissa loved to rant to Teresa when they thought I wasn't home. And the next recording I caught would become the bomb that destroyed their entire plan. 3 days after I met with my lawyer in Dallas, Teresa finally made her move. I was in my office at the shop in Austin, finishing paperwork, when my phone buzzed with a message from Melissa. "Mom wants us all to have dinner at her place in Houston on Sunday. She says it's important. Please don't be difficult." I stared at the screen for a long second. Important. I almost laughed. They thought I didn't know. They thought they were still ahead. I typed back, "Sure, I'll be there." Let them gather. Let them feel safe. Let them think it was time to finally corner me. They had no clue I'd already been to the courthouse that morning. I had already signed the divorce papers. I had already filed as the petitioner. I had already locked my businesses behind legal steel doors they couldn't touch. Sunday came. Teresa's house in Houston looked like it always did. Perfect on the outside, rotten underneath. The yard was trimmed, porch lights warm, the smell of food floating from inside. But as soon as I stepped through the door, I felt it. The tension. Thick, sticky, heavy. Teresa was waiting in the living room, arms crossed, lips pressed into a thin line. Melissa sat on the couch, eyes red like she'd been crying, or rehearsing. "Daniel," Teresa greeted me with a cold smile. "Sit, we have a lot to discuss." I sat in the armchair opposite them. No hugs, no small talk. Just three people who knew we weren't a family anymore. Melissa cleared her throat. "Look," she began, voice trembling just enough to seem fragile. "This isn't how I wanted things to go. But our marriage isn't working. We both know that. And I think the best thing for both of us is to separate." I stayed silent. She took my silence as permission to continue. "I've already spoken with someone," she said, glancing at her mother. "It'll be easier if we do this the right way. We can sign some things today, make things smooth. You keep your shops. I get the house and some financial support until I'm back on my feet. Your shops," like she had the power to give me what I already owned. Teresa jumped in, voice slicing through the room. "You've had a good run, Daniel. Really. You built something impressive. But Melissa invested years of her life into you. She deserves security. The house should go to her. And a portion of the business. It's only fair." Fair. I let the word sit between us like a bad smell. "How much of the business?" I asked calmly. Melissa swallowed. Teresa answered, 50%, she said. "Given everything, that's generous." "Generous," I repeated softly, like I was testing the word. Teresa slid a thick stack of papers onto the coffee table. I recognized some of the language. They tried to formalize everything before I even got there. "Just sign," she said. "No lawyers, no drama. We can keep this between family." Something about the way she said family made my skin crawl. I looked at Melissa. Her eyes didn't show love or sadness or even regret. They showed calculation. She was measuring my reaction, waiting to see if her script was working. I leaned forward, rested my elbows on my knees, and nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. "We should keep this between family." Teresa's shoulders relaxed a little. Melissa let out a tiny breath of relief. That's when I pulled my phone out of my pocket and placed it gently on the coffee table. "Before I sign anything," I said quietly, "I want us to listen to something together." I hit play, and in that moment, I watched their confidence collapse in real time. Teresa's voice filled the room first, sharp and cruel, echoing from my tiny phone speaker. "Men like Daniel exist to be used. He's stable, predictable, hardworking, exactly the type you marry to gain something. But lovers like Evan, they're the ones you build a life with." Melissa's voice followed, smaller, shaky. "But what if Daniel finds out?" Teresa again, louder this time. "He won't. He worships you, and when we take what we need, he'll be too devastated to fight." The room froze. Melissa's hands began to shake. Teresa's face turned white, then red, then something in between. Her mouth opened and closed without sound. "Turn that off," she snapped. "You had no right to." I raised a hand. "I'm not done," I said. I swiped to the next recording. This time it was Melissa's voice, angry, impatient. "Mom, once the divorce hits, Daniel won't know what hit him. He'll sign whatever I put in front of him. Then Evan and I can move to LA and start fresh. We'll sell one of the shops, maybe both. It's not like Daniel built any of that without me." Teresa laughed in the background of the audio. "Exactly. He's too soft to fight back. Just get him to sign before he realizes what's happening." I stopped the recording. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Melissa shook her head slowly. "Daniel, I can explain." "No," I said quietly. "You really can't." Teresa stood up, pointing a finger at me. "You recorded us without our consent. That's illegal. We can sue you for that." "We can." I smiled for the first time that evening. Not a happy smile. A sad, tired one. "Funny you mention lawsuits," I said, "because my attorney would love to talk about those." I picked up my phone again, pressed a different button, and within seconds, a new voice came through the speaker. "Daniel, can you hear me?" It was Richard, my lawyer from Dallas. Loud, clear, confident. "Yes, Richard, you're on speaker," I said. "Teresa and Melissa are here." Teresa's eyes widened. "Who is this?" she demanded. "I'm the man," Richard replied calmly, "who already filed Daniel's divorce petition 3 days ago. I'm also the one who has copies of the recordings you just heard. along with screenshots, financial records, and documented evidence of infidelity and fraud. Melissa covered her mouth with her hand. Tears finally spilled over. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. Richard continued, unbothered by the tremor in her voice. "Under Texas law, Daniel's premarital assets and business holdings are protected. Your affair, documented and corroborated, significantly weakens any claim you might have had to his properties, especially given your documented attempt to forge his signature on business transfer forms. That alone is a crime." Melissa turned toward me, panicked. "I didn't forge anything. Mom only." "Melissa," Richard cut in, "we have the documents. We have metadata. We have timestamps. We know exactly which device submitted the fraudulent request." Teresa tried one last angle. "This is nonsense. You can't prove anything about me." "Oh, but we can," Richard replied. "Your repeated misuse of Daniel's credit card to fund your daughter's lover, your direct participation in planning to strip Daniel's assets, your text message encouraging him to just sign or things get harder, all of that paints a very clear picture." I watched Teresa's shoulders sag under the weight of his words. "You're both exposed legally," Richard said. "The best thing you can do now is accept what's coming and negotiate instead of pretending you still hold the power in this situation, because you don't." Melissa finally broke. She slid off the couch onto her knees, grabbing my hand. "Daniel, please," she sobbed. "We can fix this. I made a mistake. I got confused. Evan doesn't mean anything. He was just—" I pulled my hand away. "You didn't get confused," I said, my voice low. "You built a life with someone else while using me as your safety net. You didn't just cheat on me, Melissa. You tried to erase me and replace me." Teresa looked at her daughter, then at me, then at my phone. "What are you going to do?" she spat. I stood up slowly and straightened my jacket. "What I should have done the moment you started treating me like a fool," I said. "I'm walking away with everything that's mine." I picked up the unsigned documents, tore them cleanly in half, and let the pieces fall onto the coffee table between us. "You wanted 50%, I said. "You'll be lucky to walk away with 50% of your clothes." Then I turned toward the door, my heart pounding, but not from fear this time, from freedom. Behind me, I heard Melissa sob harder. Teresa cursed under her breath. Richard's voice still came softly from the phone in my hand. "Well done, Daniel," he said. "Now we move forward." And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. The day the divorce finalized felt strangely quiet. Not triumphant, not celebratory, just quiet. Like the silence that follows a storm so violent you're still checking the windows to make sure nothing else breaks. Melissa didn't show up to the final hearing in Austin. Her attorney attended in her place, red-faced and exhausted. She walked away with the bare minimum: personal belongings, the clothes she brought into the marriage, and a modest settlement that the law required. Nothing more. No businesses, no house, no future built on my back. For someone who once believed she could rebuild her life on my assets, the fall was brutal. I didn't gloat, I didn't smile, I just felt free. As for Evan, he disappeared from Melissa's life within weeks. Once the money dried up, so did his interest. I heard he moved to Phoenix chasing a fitness influencer opportunity. Typical. And Teresa, she avoided me completely. But I did hear through a mutual acquaintance that she spent weeks calling lawyers, trying to figure out whether she could sue me for emotional distress, fraud, harassment, anything. Every attorney told her the same thing. She was lucky I didn't press charges. Her credit card misuse alone could have led to criminal consequences. Not to mention the conspiracy to commit financial fraud. She finally stopped trying to fight the universe when she realized it was done with her. The first real breath of relief came one quiet Thursday morning. I was opening the shop, rolling up the metal door, letting the warm Texas sunlight spill through the garage. My employees joked around as usual, drinking their coffees, ready to start the day. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel like an outsider in my own life. I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel fooled. I felt whole. Later that day, Javier, my most trusted manager, walked into my office. "Boss," he said gently, "you look lighter." I didn't know how to respond at first, but he was right. Carrying betrayal weighs a man down, even long before he realizes he's carrying it. Letting it go makes you feel 10 years younger. I invested myself back into the shop, upgraded equipment, gave my team raises, opened a third location a few months later. It all came together with a clarity I hadn't felt since before Melissa's distance began creeping into our home. People sometimes ask if I regret the years I spent with her. I don't. Regret implies wasted time, and nothing was wasted. I learned how deeply trust can blind you. I learned how dangerous silence can be. I learned that love isn't supposed to require sacrificing yourself until nothing is left. But most importantly, I learned that even the deepest betrayal can't destroy a man who refuses to stay broken. One evening, months after everything settled, I sat alone on my porch, watching the sun slowly disappear behind the Austin skyline. A peace I hadn't felt in years settled over me. Not the fragile peace that comes from pretending everything is fine. The real kind. The kind built on truth, boundaries, and freedom. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurting. I wasn't waiting for answers or apologies. I had given myself closure. Because closure isn't something people hand you. Closure is something you choose. And in that moment, I realized the most powerful truth of all. I didn't lose anything. They did. I walked away with everything that mattered. My integrity, my work, my future, and the lesson that changed me forever. Subscribe for more emotional, real-life stories every week. Thank you for being here with me.